Thank you, Presiding Officer. Today I hope and believe Parliament will approve spending plans to build a fairer and more prosperous Scotland, investing in our public services, our workers and our economy. Today we take another step towards delivering the bold and progressive agenda set out in the programme for government. MSP colleagues who will vote with the government demonstrate their commitment to developing stronger public services and a more inclusive society. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the Tories, their Labour brothers in arms and Willie Rennie's gang of three. First to that divided grouplet, the Orkney and Shetland Party, elected as active constituency members with traditional party support, and their erstwhile mainland colleagues, the tactical voters, the vote for us not because you believe in us, but to stop somebody else party. Legend has it that when Howard Carter prized open Tutankhamun's tomb back in 1922, he was mesmerised by treasures moulded in gold and carved in ivory, trumpets, weapons, clothing and all manner of wonders. An aged papyrus scroll caught his eye. Tentatively unfurled, he carefully deciphered the ancient hieroglyphics. One simple phrase emerged: a penny for education. Through a millennia of war, revolution, reformation, pestilence and plague, fire and flood, that shekel, denarius, groat for education policy has remained sacred to a small, much despised and marginalised sect known to the ancients as Lib Dems. Heretics say that it has only been policy since 1983 and much devalued by inflation since then. Yet even though its architects have seen the policy ignored for decades and many of its early adherents moved to that big ballot box in the sky, its current High Priest, St Willie of Rennie, who's here in his ghostly, if not actual presence, remains an avid devotee. Without making any effort to explain how, this wizened sage mystically claims its implementation would release $500 million for education, although the precise mechanism of how much would be allocated to each part of the system remains known only to the truest of cult members. Certainly, this lazy thinking has not been explained to Parliament or the people of Scotland. If only this tiny group of latter-day Magi spent as much time explaining the budget as they do following the letter, if not the spirit, of the law in relation to election expenses in their target seats. I must admit I was a little bewildered by the Tory party political broadcast which aired earlier this month. Apart from Annie Wells, there was little sign of the familiar Tory faces we know and love here at Holyrood, and instead it was a showcase of Ruth's warm, couthy, more proletarian Tories. It's frankly insulting that the Tories believe that the electorate don't need to hear their policy ideas, tax proposals or indeed the failure of the 13 Tory MPs from Scotland to represent Scottish interests at Westminster. Do the Tories really believe people will be convinced they have changed simply because Annie Wells used to work at Marks and Spencer's, or because Bill Grant MP's late father was a miner? I think in the next broadcast we need to hear the authentic voice of Toryism in Scotland. Donald Cameron, 27th Lochiel, discussing the trials and tribulations of being a clan chief in 21st century Scotland, or debating with Alexander Burnett who is the most aristocratic heritage, and whether Harrow's polo team was better than Eton's, or Sir Edward Mountain bewailing the difficulties in finding a good butler these days, or Peter Chapman wistfully reminiscing about the 4 farms he jointly owned prior to becoming an MSP. In the next broadcast, Tory voters need to be reassured that still the same old party of vested interest, landed wealth and privilege it has always been. Or if we must have Bill Grant rather than polishing road signs, yes, he could explain why he not only refuses to support the 4,000, I'll let her in, don't you worry, the 4,750 WASPy women's in his constituency and sign the Women Against State Pension and Equality Pledge. He actually fell asleep on the green benches during Westminster's debate on the matter back in December. In any case, I hope retired firefighter Bill Grant will join me in welcoming this budget, which will protect police and fire services and work to ensure they retain in full the savings created from now being able to reclaim VAT, as well as returning the £140 million already taken from these services by the UK Tory government. I yield to the leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party, who, Nicholas Soames, has been wandering up and down Westminster declaring, "Ruth Davidson is not getting my mid-Sussex seat." Miss Davidson.
Ruth Davidson.
I would like to ask the member if such a long diatribe on individual members of my party, does he think it shows more the reason why he's never graced the front benches of his own party, or more the reason why he's got nothing to say about his own party's budget?
Kenneth Gibson.
A wee bit of déjà vu. That's not the first time you used that line, Ruth, so you need to think up some new ones as we go forward. I'm talking about the budget, but the point is it's the kind of false face that your party's presenting to the people of Scotland which I find most irksome. Meanwhile, Labour has again been too preoccupied with infighting and political manoeuvring to make any meaningful contribution to the budget process. Perhaps Jackie Bailey won't take Murdo Fraser up on his Valentine offer to join the Conservative Party, but the way Labour MSPs vote with the Tories against the SNP government, one might be forgiven to getting the pair confused. Jeremy Corbyn MP ventured up to North Britain last week to meet a select group of acolytes whilst having a wee pop at the SNP and austerity. Perhaps someone should gently remind them that in fact Labour introduced austerity.
Point of order, John Scott.
I'm just wondering what relevance any of Mr Gibson's speech has had to the budget debate at all. It's been a diatribe, as Ruth Davidson has said, against named individuals, low blows in this Parliament, and absolutely nothing to do with the motion under consideration today.
I'm sure, Mr Scott, that Mr Gibson's about to enlighten us on that, but it wasn't actually a point of order.
I'd like to thank my Ayrshire colleague. I'm sorry I haven't mentioned you in any of my speeches this year. We'll perhaps do that later on this in further debates. But Labour, of course, introduced austerity while still in government at Westminster, have consistently failed to oppose Tory welfare cuts since then. And in fact, what was interesting was that in James Kelly's opening speech, he didn't criticise the Tory government's cut to this Parliament's budget once. Call it you want, cognitive dissonance, collective amnesia, I prefer outright hypocrisy. Presiding Officer, today Labour and the Tories will vote against investing in childcare. They'll vote against improving our schools and hospitals. They'll vote against protecting our public services, and they will vote against a fairer society for all. It's important to bear in mind that 70% of Scots will actually pay less tax the coming year than they do now. This might be difficult for the opposition to spin away when they explain to their constituents why they voted against today's budget, but is a fact nonetheless. By diverging from the UK on tax, we can better protect our public services that are free at the point of use, including free prescriptions, free personal care and indeed free higher education, which many MSPs of other parties' children benefit from. An investment will help reduce the attainment gap, double free childcare, deliver 50,000 additional homes and £600 million in broadband. Please support this budget today to deliver first, last and always for the people of Scotland.